is NET, the National Educational Television Network.
All my life, I have looked at words as though I were seeing them for the first time. These words, and so many others spoken by our guest today, Mr. Ernest Hemingway. Ernest? Thank you, Charles. I'm happy to be here today. I'd like to speak first about my book, if that's okay. Now, Ernest, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves first, and we'll get to the book in good time. Fair enough, Charles. I was born in a suburb not far from here, in Oak Park, Illinois, July 1899. I grew up and went to high school there, and decided not to pursue further education. I, against my father's wishes, decided to try and go into the Army to see some action in World War I. I was not able to get into the Army due to my poor eyesight at the time, but I did get into the ambulance corps in Italy. It was there that I met my first love, Anne, and, well, we'll talk about that more later. I have no doubt about that, but you said you were in the war. If you don't mind, if you could expand upon that, tell us a little bit more about what that was like. I knew that World War I was a terrible place to be on the Italian front. Of course, if I must. I remember specifically my first day at the front lines. A munitions factory near Milan exploded, and I spent the day picking up body parts, primarily female body parts, and it was a very shaking experience. Another story that I can remember is I met an old man, a 50-year-old soldier once, who I told, "You are troppo vecchio for this war, Pops," which was, "You are too old for this war, old man," in Italian. And he told me, "I can die as well as any man." These events greatly impacted my life and were the inspirations for many of my later stories. It was bad times for all our boys, even the ones working for the Italian side. I'd like to talk now about your book, A Farewell to Arms. I know many of your past acquaintances and experiences were satirized in this book, and if you would like to expand on a few of them, it would certainly be our pleasure. Of course. The story is, at its core, a love story in time of war and strife. A story of overcoming anything to find one's true love. The main character is Frederick Tenente, which is Italian for Lieutenant Henry, and it is him who narrates the story and brings you throughout his life and adventures in World War I. He, like myself, is an ambulance driver on the Italian front, and it is in one of the front lines that he is injured by a mortar shell from the Austrians, and it is very reminiscent of my own experiences, as I too had mortar shrapnel exploded into my legs, which sent me to a hospital, which is where I met my love. And in the story, much the same happens. He goes to a hospital back from the front lines, and it is there that he meets our second main character, Catherine Barkley. And when he first meets Catherine, she is almost insane from the grief of losing her first love, who, like many, were a casualty of that terrible war. And he, at first, is only looking for something of a dalliance, a bit of fun to keep him distracted from the war, but quickly falls for her, as she does for him. And the story is one of two lovers who, against all odds, manage to continue their love for one another. I will not spoil the ending for you, but I do not believe it is one that all would expect from such a story. That's very interesting, Mr. Hemingway. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. If you would, I started the show off with one of your quotes. Could you take us out on one? There are events which are so great that if a writer has participated in them, his obligation is to write truly, rather than assume the presumption of altering them with invention.